Kate Allatt joins us. Hello, Kate. Good morning to you.
Hello, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm very well indeed. Have you heard before of stroke sufferers being read to, and that it makes a great difference, particularly if you read them books that they might remember, for example, from their childhood?
Well, you know, it's interesting because when I was in hospital myself, I was every Monday morning at 10 o'clock, I was part of a reading group. I obviously couldn't read, I couldn't do anything. I was dribbling after my big stroke, but the reading was there as part of my rehabilitation, actually. I can't say I enjoyed the book they were reading to me, but I couldn't really argue about that at the time.
So you were aware of thinking, well, I don't really like this book. They're reading it to me, but it's not a book I'd have chosen.
Absolutely, but you know, for me, it was not actually the book itself and being really. I think it's a brilliant idea, but for me personally, it was about being lifted and hoisted off my bed and actually having a change of environment.
And you're the founder of a charity called
Fighting Strokes,
yes.
Actually. And I had a stroke just under 3 years ago, actually. A huge one, a brainstem stroke with locked-in syndrome. Think of Tony Nicholson. I had that, but I've recovered. However, as a result of that, I've set this charity up, and we're here to inspire and help people make the most improvement they possibly can.
Let's talk about locked-in syndrome. I mean, it's really the very embodiment of a living hell, isn't it? Because you know what you think, you feel everything you always felt before, but you can't tell anyone.
You know, it's exactly that. It is a living hell.
Yeah.
It's really, I mean, to feel everything, when you're paralysed, goodness knows how that would feel, but to actually not be able to move anything, yet feel everything, so you feel all your cramps, you feel not being turned, you can hear, you can see, you can't talk to anybody. It's dreadful.
How long did it last for you?
Well, for me, it lasted a long time. I was in ICU for 9 weeks and then rehab for another 5 months.
Lord.
Some people have locked-in syndrome for 2 days or 2 weeks or permanently. You know,
were your family and your friends, were they told that there was a likelihood you might come out of it, or were they assuming you'd never recover from it?
Oh, no, they were told that I would never recover. A poor chap just recently from South Africa had the lawyers in with his family, and he starved himself to death after a week because he didn't. His prognosis from the medic's point of view was he was not going to do anything, far too early, in my opinion, with all my experience from people all over the world.
Yes.
But it's ignorance, medical ignorance, that we're trying to help here with fighting strokes. It's both educating the health sector, but it's all, I'm hoping to do that with becoming a lay member of NICE, the National Institute of Clinical Excellence.
Yes.
And also through inspiring people and telling them, look, there's so many people now join our Facebook site and our Twitter site.
Yes.
Volunteer, and they all have strokes. So with people that have been through it, who are the best people to advise and explain.
Tell me, Kate, when you first got the first glimmer of a tiny, tiny indication that maybe you might be going to make some kind of a recovery from this locked-in syndrome following your stroke.
ICU, week 8, all that moved after 8 weeks was half a millimetre right thumb. That was it.
Right.
And then my left side didn't move at all from until the end of February, until the end of May, rather. I didn't speak for 6 months, believe it or not, and I was nil by mouth for 7 months.
But remember, but can you take us back? Maybe it's confusing to remember it, but I'm trying to think. You don't speak for 6 months, and then what happens? Then a sort of noise comes out of your mouth, or what?
Oh, it's a really lovely story. This, I've written about it loads in my books. You can get them on Amazon. But the point is,
yes,
it's such a beautiful story. My children came to visit me one day in rehab. Obviously, I dribbled. At that point, I was able to move my hand on a pillow and scribble a few words. And my youngest son, who was only 6 at the time, Woody, he said, "Oh, Mum, don't write my name, say my name." And it was so naive.
Yeah.
And I just went, "Woody," and it wasn't anything like as clear as that. To which my 2 children, Indy and Harvey, said, say my name. Anyway, then Mark, I couldn't say Mark, but anyway, all weekend I practiced.
Yes.
And Monday morning, my favourite nurse, Oliver, came in with the box, and he, as usual, he said, "Morning, Kate." And I couldn't respond. But this morning, he came with the box and he said, "Morning, Kate." And I went, "Morning, Oliver."
Oh, my goodness.
He dropped the box, cried, and said, "It's moments like this that I came into nursing."
Oh, my goodness. What I haven't asked you, Kate, is how old are you?
I'm now 42. I was 39.
You were 39. And how old were the kids when you had the stroke?
They were 6, 9 and 10.
Cripes.
Let me just explain it to you,
please.
Because I really want to help.
Do, please.
Andrew Marr is very young. As you know, a quarter of all strokes happen in people under 60. And they happen every 6 seconds in the world. It's a massive issue. But I've also got some really important things. I think people like Andrew Marr, people like his loved ones, his family, his friends, and people all around the world, actually, or country, that are going through strokes because they're affected by it. I think there's some really important things they need to know.
What are they?
Well, one thing I would add to your FAST campaign that you quite rightly alluded to earlier was the tongue. They've been proven that if the patient is asked to stick the tongue out and it drops to the left or the right, it's an indication of stroke. So I'd add that to the FAST campaign stuff, which I think is brilliant.
Right.
I think people need to know that. But also acute hospital stage, which is the hospital stage. The most important thing with stroke is to get the patient exercising and to try and remap that damaged brain, because a stroke is damage to the brain, basically, and the brain, if it's exercised enough, will find a way to reroute round the damaged area, so they carry on, like, for example, lifting their arm, but they'll use slightly different pathways to do it. But to do that, they need to exercise the brain. Now, and one of the things I say on my Facebook is, your mind, you either use it or lose it. I had to do this myself, to think about how to move something, to then will it, to then practice it every hour of every day forever, and then constantly exercise. Those are my sort of, and I see this happen with all sorts of people around the world. And once they start doing things that worked for me, and I still do, they have the most phenomenal results, and they're blowing medics' minds.
Tell me something. How are you these days? How are you today?
Well, you know what? I'm doing brilliantly. It's just under 3 years on. I've just applied to be a Paralympian cyclist at Rio. So for me, you only die once. Live life to the full, and that's what I want to do.
And how mobile are you?
I do everything I can. I can run. That was my biggest goal. I don't choose to because it would damage my hips and knees. Yeah. But I walk. I can walk 10 miles. I can cycle 35 miles in the Peak District.
God, fantastic.
So
and life with the kids and looking after them and all the normal things that everybody has to do, shopping, cooking, getting in and out of the bath and all that.
I deal with all the tantrums. But I would also say... Yes. You know, really, the first lady you spoke to made me laugh about the arguments, because my husband and I would often argue on Facebook, because I used social media such a lot when I was... It was a faceless, anonymous way of me, because I was still the same inside, in hospital. It allowed me to engage with the outside world, but also argue with my husband. But the other thing I learned to do was swear with my eyes, which is quite funny.
To swear with your eyes. And do you look the same on the outside?
That's the problem. Brain injury of any description, unless I walk around with a bandage on my brain, people think you look just like you did. I do, but as the chap who just had on alluded to, the hidden sides of stroke are worse than the physical sides. The withdrawal, the depression, the post-traumatic stress, the low self-esteem, low worthlessness. You know, people who have strokes have to adapt to a new normal. It doesn't have to be worse, and my life's been embodiment of that. But I think the other thing is really important to say to people affected by stroke is that you can lead a camel to water, but you have to want to drink it for themselves. You know, I can inspire, and I love doing it, but their attitude and their willingness to do it for themselves and not have too much done for them, which is a tendency of loved ones to do, because that can irritate and that can annoy, but also it can hold up the regeneration of new pathways.
I mean, you're an extraordinary person to talk to. You really are quite a remarkable person. The charity that you founded is called Fighting Strokes, and your book, Kate, is available on Amazon. You say we'll find out the name of it and we'll mention it on the show. Thank you very much indeed. I feel privileged for having spoken to you. I really do.